Well, good morning. Welcome to our class on the life of Christ. We're within 2 to 3 days before he'll be on the cross. So, interesting time to study. Steve is at Quinn, a rural congregation over in Franklin County this morning. So he'll be out. So we'll look at not clicking, James. Okay, Matthew 25 this morning. Remember Wednesday night, Steve introduced two questions that are in the first part of Matthew 24 when the disciples asked him about the stones that would be destroyed in Jerusalem. And they said, tell us when these things will be and what will be the sign of your coming and the end of the age. So two questions, one about destruction of Jerusalem, and the other one seems to be about when Jesus would come back and will be the end of the age. Steve used Mark 13 and some of Matthew 24 to deal with those questions. So Matthew 25 follows on with that same point as Jesus is talking then about the final judgment, the end of the age, and his second coming. So at Christ's second coming, we have three parables in here. Really, the third one's not a parable. I'll change that slide, I guess. They're very familiar information, and we'll look at it this morning. The virgins, the talents, and the judgment scene with the sheep and the goats. Two main points to be aware of this morning. Main thing is we don't know when Jesus is coming back. We don't know when the final judgment's going to be. So we don't know. And the second part is be prepared. So those are 2 points we'll be talking about quite a bit as we go through the lesson this morning. At this point, being prepared, it's not a task or a chore. Think about that. Or something to be feared and dreaded. If we love Jesus and want to serve him as our master, our king, then we'll be prepared because of love, not because of fear. So think about that as we begin our class this morning. I ran across this picture, this slide, first part of this last week. Came in a tip I get every day about computers. And it started out, are you ready? I said, well, that fits right into my class. I'm going to grab that and use it. And this guy is talking about, in his tip, do you have your data on your computer ready for you to die? What's going to happen to your data on your computer after you die, particularly if you got it password protected? Does somebody know that? So he starts off, he says, not to be too morbid, but I originally wanted to title this tip, Prepare to Die. Since that might get your attention better. But he changed it and made it, are you ready? So if you think about a computer, what's going to happen to the data there? We're talking about the final judgment and what's going to happen to us. That's our eternal destiny. So let's begin. We're looking at the 10 virgins this morning. Matthew 25, the first 13 verses. And Scott's going to read that for us.
Behold, the bridegroom, come out here. And all those virgins rose and trimmed the lamps. Foolish said to Prudence, give us some of your oil, for our lamps are going out. Prudence answered, no, there will not be enough for us and you too. Go instead to the dealers and buy some for yourselves. While they were going away to make the purchase, the bridegroom, and those who were ready went in with him to the wedding. The door was shut. Later the other virgins also came, saying, Lord, Lord, open up for us. But he answered, truly I say to you, I do not know you.
Okay, this statement here from Matthew Henry, his commentary, might help us understand this parable a little bit better. He says it was custom sometimes among the Jews on this occasion, that is the case of a wedding, that the bridegroom came, attending with his friends, late at night to the house of the bride, where she expected him, and she was there with her bridesmaids. Upon notice given of the bridegroom's approach, the bridesmaids were to go out with their lamps in hands to light him into the house with ceremony and formality for the celebrating of the marriage with great mirth, that is, cheerfulness and festivity. So we see from this custom here, kind of makes this parable have a little more sense to us as we read through it. So these 10, they call it 10 virgins, the bridesmaids, are waiting for the bridegroom to come late at night. And 5 had taken extra oil and 5 had not. So 5 only had the oil that was in their lamps. So the bridegroom comes at an unexpected time, sometime late in the night, and the virgins are called to go out and meet him. 5 realize then they don't have enough oil to last throughout the ceremony. So they want to borrow oil from the 5 who have the extra oil. They said, no, we can't do that because we will have enough for ourselves and for you. So while they were gone to get more oil, the bridegroom comes. And those who were prepared, that's a key word, those who prepared went in with him to the marriage feast. And then if you notice in the reading, Scott did, and the door was shut. A key point. So those who prepared went into the wedding feast. So each one is responsible for preparing for themselves. The 5 wise were not responsible for the 5 foolish. They were responsible for themselves. So the 5 foolish, the unprepared ones then return, and they're not allowed to enter the marriage feast because the door was shut. If you look at verse 12, it says, I do not know you. Well, they tried to approach and get into the marriage feast. I do not know you. So all 10 were invited, but only 5 were admitted. Those who were prepared when the bridegroom came. So what's our lesson? All 10 could have entered the feast. All 10 could have entered. But there's preparation to be made while we wait the coming of the bridegroom. Christ is our bride. The church is the bridegroom. We make up the church, individual members of it. So there's preparation on our part to be made as we wait the coming of our bride. Prepared were admitted, and the door was shut, or the unprepared. So Jesus is describing his second coming. The points we get from this is we don't know when, and we have to be prepared. That's the simple points we're getting from this lesson. So let's move on now. This is, like I said, very familiar territory. Move on now to the talents, which is in 14 through 30. Doug, you want to read that, please?
For the kingdom of heaven is like a man traveling to a far country, who called his own servants and delivered his goods to them. And to one he gave 5 talents, and to another 2, and to another 1, to each according to his own ability, and immediately he went on a journey. Then he who had received the 5 talents went and traded with them, and made another 5 talents. And likewise he who had received 2 gained 2 more also. But he who had received 1 went and dug in the ground, and hid his Lord's money. After a long time the Lord of those servants came and settled accounts with them. So he who had received 5 talents came and brought 5 other talents, saying, Lord, you delivered to me 5 talents. Look, I have gained 5 more talents besides them. His Lord said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of your Lord. He also, who had received 2 talents, came and said, Lord, you delivered to me 2 talents. Look, I have gained 2 more talents besides them. His Lord said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of your Lord. Then he who had received the 1 talent came and said, Lord, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you have not sown, and gathering where you have not scattered seed. And I was afraid, and went and hid your talent in the ground. Look, there you have what is yours. But his Lord answered and said to him, You wicked and lazy servant, you knew that I reap where I have not sown, and gather where I have not scattered seed. So you ought to have deposited my money with the bankers, and at my coming I would have received back my own with interest. Therefore take the talent from him, and give it to the one who has 10 talents. For to everyone who has, more will be given, and he will have abundance. But from him who does not have, even what he has will be taken away. And cast the unprofitable servant into the outer darkness. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth.
Okay, let's summarize this one. The time of the judgment here is compared to a man going into a far country. He calls in his servants, 3 are mentioned, and he gave his possessions into their care while he was gone. And he gave each one according to his ability. You'll hear that phrase several times in the next few minutes. Each one according to his ability. One received 5 talents, one 2 talents, and one 1 talent. Again, each one given according to his ability. A talent is a weight of money, it can be gold or silver, and if it's gold, it's worth several $100,000. That's a large value amount of money. But here in this parable, I think it represents a responsibility. The man gave him a charge to manage his funds while he was away. So the servant that was given 5 talents put his ability to work, and he used the money, and he gained 5 more talents. The servant with 2 talents put his ability, according to his ability, less than what the 5. He put that servant to work, put his ability to work, and he gained 2 more talents. The servant who received only 1, again, give it to him according to his ability to handle it, dug a hole and hid his master's money. So the master returned. He asked for a report. What happened to the money I gave you? Verse 19 says he returned after a long time. So it's indefinite. No time is given. The servants didn't know when he was coming back after some long period of time. So the servant with the 5 talents gives his report, and he said he's gained 5 more talents. And the master is well pleased. The servant with 2 talents gave his report, and he gained 2 more talents. Again, the master is well pleased. So to both of these, he says, verse 21 and 23, well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful over a few things, I'll make you ruler over many things, enter into the joys of your Lord. So the man who had only gained 2 talents, according to his ability, was not expected to gain 5. He got the exact same statement from his master as the man who had 5 and gained 5. So each one was expected to perform according to the ability he had. So each servant maximized his ability and gained what he could. Remember the woman who anointed Jesus' feet with a very, very expensive perfume? And some are complaining and saying that it should have been sold for a large amount of money and given to the poor. But Jesus said, let her alone. She has done what she could. Or remember the widow who cast her 2 mites into the treasury? Seems to me they had both done what they could. They had done according to their ability. So the servant with 1 talent came and he started making excuses. But excuses are not accepted. Remember, just like the others, he was given according to his ability. So the master says, take from him and give it to the servant who has 10 talents. Cast the wicked and unprofitable servant into outer darkness. The servant was unprofitable. And look at the word, it's also used there, unprofitable, and he's wicked. Why is he wicked? Is it because he's unprofitable? He's not no use to the master? There'll be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So we all have different abilities. But we all have abilities. Each servant receives something according to his ability. They were expected to perform according to their ability. So we are expected to return goods to our master based on our ability, whether it be 1, 2, or 5 talents. And we can work and gain more abilities. Unused abilities, though, are taken away, and judgment is passed on those unused abilities. So there's a question. Can I imagine myself standing before the great judge, making excuses as to why I didn't use the ability I was given? Oh, but Lord, the servant had 1 talent, came making excuses. He was cast into outer darkness, with weeping and gnashing of teeth. He didn't put his ability to work for the master. Let me stop here, and I don't know if I can hear comments from anybody or not, but anybody got anything to add to any one of these first 2? Okay, let's look at the last one here. And if you notice, this one does not start off like the first 2. The first 2 said the kingdom of heaven is like they're parables for the beginning of the virgins of the talents boat. This doesn't start that way. This just starts off when the Son of Man comes in his glory with all his angels with him. Jesus just saying, here's how it's going to be when that time comes. So when the Son of Man comes in all his glory and all his angels are with him, he'll sit on the throne of his glory. And all nations will be gathered before him. There'll be a separation that's going to occur. He's going to separate the sheep from the goats. Even though it uses the term all nations will be gathered there, don't think that we're going to be judged by nation. Each one will give an account as to what he has done individually. So to the sheep, the ones on the right hand, the king will say, come, you blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared to you from the foundation of the world. Can you think of any sweeter, nicer, greater thing that you could ever hear than to hear these words? Come, you blessed of my Father. It just rings in your ear. If you are one of those to whom Jesus will say, come, you blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you. Remember, have to think of John 14, when Jesus said, I've gone to prepare a place for you. There's a place prepared. But then he explains why they were chosen, why they were chosen to enter. But they don't understand. So Jesus says, as you did it to the least of one of these, my brethren, you did it to me. As we do things every day to others, we're doing it to Jesus. That's what he's saying. As you serve others, as I serve others, we're serving Jesus. But to those on the left, if that was the sweetest word you ever heard, this has got the most frightful words you could ever hear. Depart from me, you curse, into everlasting fire. Prepare for the devil and his angels. But again, they don't understand why they were rejected. So he gives us the exact same thing that he said to those on the right who were accepted. Only puts it in reverse. And he says, you did not do it to these, my brethren, and so you didn't do it to me. No conditions different between one and the other, except one did, the other one didn't. So the goat will go away into everlasting punishment, but the sheep, the righteous, into eternal life. May 29th, 1953, Edmund Hillary became the first man to climb Mount Everest. A year earlier, in 1952, he had tried and failed. A few weeks after this failed attempt, speaking to a group in England, with a picture of the mountain behind him, he walked to the edge of the stage. In a loud voice, he bellowed, Mount Everest, you beat me the first time, but I'll beat you the next time, because you've grown all you're going to grow, but I'm still growing. His point was simple and obvious. The obstacle, the challenge, Mount Everest, would remain the same. But he had the ability to improve, to learn, to get better, to get stronger, to grow. So are we still growing? Are we doing more with our abilities? Are we serving others more every day? Mount Everest is there. It won't change. It's up to us to change, to grow, to get better, stronger, smarter, to gain more talents and put them to use serving others. Matthew 13:49. So it will be at the end of the age. The angels will come forth, separate the wicked from among the just, and cast them into a furnace of fire to be waiting and gnashing of teeth. At the end of the age, same question Jesus is answering here. What's going to happen then? So the Son of Man rewards those who are busy caring about the needs of the others. Oops. Notice that those who did nothing were cast into eternal punishment. In this section, when Jesus is talking about this, had those who were rejected done anything wrong? Now, I know there are other places listed where there are sins we do that's going to cause us to be lost. But in this passage here, had these who were rejected done anything wrong? Is anything mentioned they had done wrong? What was their problem? The problem was not doing. Romans 2, verse 6. Jesus will render each one according to his deeds, each one. Eternal life to those who by patience and continuance in doing good seek for glory, honor, and immortality. In verse 10, glory, honor, and peace to everyone who works what is good, the Jew first and also the Greek. So what's our lessons? The Son of Man will return. There will be a judgment. The righteous will be rewarded because they have been busy doing righteous deeds. The wicked will be punished. Why? For not doing the Lord's work. There's a clear choice of what it takes to be righteous. Work, serving others, and offering no excuses. Matthew 7:21. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, shall enter the kingdom of heaven, but he who does the will of my Father. Serving Jesus is active. It's working. It's doing. Kind of goes along with that theme we've been looking at this year. Pursuing righteousness. The righteous will be given the positive.
Wayne,
Yes.
just had a thought on that section before you go to the next chapter. When we're doing what is right, there's no need to fear God, obviously, when we're doing what is right. But because the Lord put the verses there to show us the motivation of fear, that's true. In other words, love for Jesus is a motivator. Fear, when we're not doing right, is a motivator. Else he would not have written the verses. Like in verse 30, weeping and gnashing of teeth. Verse 41, the everlasting fire. The last verse, everlasting punishment. Other verses like the worm dies not, the fire is not quenched. On and on like that. So fear is a motivator, just like love is a motivator. But again, when we're doing what is right, there's no need to fear God. But if we're not, when we're not, those verses are written there by God, and they're true. So fear is a motivator, love is a motivator.
Yeah. Sure. And my point I was making earlier is if we have the love to serve, we don't have to worry about the fear. Even though your point is well taken, that fear is there. Fear of everlasting punishment, fear of weeping and gnashing of teeth, fear of the negative. But we emphasize the love, and we do serve Jesus because of his love.
One thought I had on the parable of talents, man with one talent had the sin of presumption, and that while the Lord was away, he presumed some things, and he did wrong by doing that. That applies to us today. A lot of people who do something they think will please the Lord God, but not go to the scriptures to see if that's what he wanted them to do. So there's a lot of that sin today that happens, especially in the denominational world. To presume that God would like this, not go to the scriptures and look for the truth of what God really left the instructions to do. So that's what
Yeah, if you didn't hear what Mike's saying, he's saying that the one talent man back in that part presumed a lot. He went and hid his master's money and offered the excuses as to why he didn't do something with it. And people today do that. They presume things without going to the scriptures and seeing if it's correct and what he wants done. What did he tell the man with one talent man? If you didn't go out and earn another talent, at least you could put it to use and make interest. Okay, you could have done. So I expect you to do something with it, and you did nothing. You buried it.
Even the one talent man tried to turn it around and say it's your fault. Blaming Jesus or the master.
Yeah.
What I want to make real quick, Wayne, is we often
Yeah, who showed us how to love? So think about that. Okay, let's move on. Move on into chapter 26 just a little bit. We have a few verses to cover here. It won't take much. We've been in chapter 26. The Passover is just 2 days away now, and the Son of Man will be handed over to the Romans to be crucified. Caiaphas the high priest, of course, the elders make up the Sanhedrin, the Jewish high court. And they're plotting to kill Jesus. But they have one concern. That is the multitude of people who are in Jerusalem for the Passover feast. Estimated to be up to possibly 2 million people in the city at that time. They don't want to stir up a mob scene. Because there are those who believe in Jesus. If they don't believe he's the Son of God, they at least believe he's a good prophet. So they have their problem. Judas goes to the high priest to help him solve their problem. He goes and bargains the price to betray Jesus. They pay him 30 pieces of silver to help them find the right time when they could take Jesus without stirring up the people. This is the fulfillment of a prophecy. We talked about prophecies earlier. Zechariah chapter 11, verse 12. Then I said to them, if it's agreeable to you, give me my wage, and if not, refrain. So they weighed out for my wages 30 pieces of silver. And the Lord said to me, throw it to the potter, that princely price they set on me. So I took the 30 pieces of silver and threw them into the house of the Lord for the potter. So Judas goes now to betray Jesus, make arrangements for 30 pieces of silver. Moving down to verse 17, another point here in this early part of this chapter. They got to prepare for the Passover feast. So Jesus sends his disciples into the city. They're to meet a man who has a pitcher of water. And he will lead them to a house that has a upper room that's furnished and ready to use. And when they prepare the meal there, they go into the city and find it just as Jesus said they would. So, quick summary. 10 virgins, all could have been there, only prepared, were able to make the feast, and the door was shut. The talents, we have different abilities, but we all have abilities. We can work and gain more abilities, but unused abilities are taken away. And judgment is passed on that. The sheep and the goat, there'll be a judgment. The righteous rewarded, wicked punished. And there's a clear choice on how to be righteous. We serve others. Nothing again is said about this. The point here is they need to do good. Okay. We got one more point here if we wrap this thing up. You know these words? When Jesus comes to reward his servants, whether it's noon or night, faithful to him, will he find us watching with our lamps all trimmed and bright? If at the dawn of the early morning he shall call us one by one, when to the Lord we restore our talents, will he answer thee, well done? Blessed are those whom the Lord finds watching. In his glory they shall share. If he comes at the dawn or midnight, will he find us watching there? We hope to share in Christ's glory. There are a number of verses talk about this. Romans 8, verses 16, 17, 18. We'll be glorified together. The glory be revealed in us. 1 Peter 5:4 says, when the chief shepherd appears, that's what we're talking about this morning, the second coming, you will receive the crown of glory that does not fade away. That's what we're working for. That's what we're serving others for. That's what we're using our talents for. That's what we're being prepared for. We may share in that crown of glory. In his glory, they shall share. That's our objective. When he's glorified, to share in that glory. Anything else? Anybody? Okay, it's about a minute before time for the bell, and we'll quit there.